Hello and welcome to another episode of The Modern Nerd. I am Sir Slice,
I'm Merchandise.
And I'm GJC.
and we are, as always, massive nerds. Now, as you can see, this is a very special episode. We apologize if there's anybody watching and they're getting any weird echo or feedback from this mic, because we're all in one room. There might be a bit of an echo. But this is the first time we've done this since our Spider-Man, our ill-fated Spider-Man No Way Home, which you can't actually find anymore because the audio was just so bad, I took it down. But
deleted it.
yes, I want to say thank you to these guys. We finally got to get together in a room again. It's been over a year since we've done it in a room. But thank you guys. Thank you. Cheers. And thank everyone else that's watching at home with us. Whether you're watching it live or checking it out on YouTube, we appreciate it. We love it when you give it a little like and subscribe. Go ahead and check that out. There's a whole bunch more content here to enjoy. But today, we are going to be talking about something near and dear, at least to Dan and mine's heart, The Last of Us HBO show. And I say that because Dan and I have played the game, and George here has not. But that's okay. That's a great thing, because we're going to go into different perspectives and kind of see how that goes. Can you pull up that screen again so we can remember what I'm doing? Technical difficulties. Oh my. So basically, if you haven't watched The Last of Us, don't watch this episode, because it's all we're going to be talking about. It is a drama based off of a Naughty Dog game on the PS5 exclusive. It is. We'll talk about this more depending on how you've taken this media, whether it's via game or via this HBO show. It's either very much a zombie apocalyptic game or a drama post-apocalyptic TV show. We'll talk about in a second here. So basically, it's about Joel and Ellie as they cross the post-apocalyptic landscape that is the United States after a virus. A fungus has spread throughout the world, destroying everything and killing everybody it comes into contact with. Ellie, spoilers, has immunity and the cure in her body, so they're trying to get her somewhere. That's pretty much what this is about. Kind of, what is that old movie? Not Logan, but Logan's based on it. Wolf and Cub, the old samurai show, which is basically the same concept of these two creating a bond, heading across out on some adventures. So
I learned something today.
Yeah. So let's start with some general impressions. How did we all like the show, George?
Why am I going?
Because I've talked to Dan about this in the car already.
I think it's a good. I think it's a good show. Yeah.
Because we had to tell you that it's not really a zombie show, because zombie shows are very, very overplayed at the time, and I will agree with that, especially Walking Dead. Bullshit. That show sucks. You liked it?
Yeah, I liked it.
Okay. I really love this. It was fantastic. General impression. Dan, I think he liked it. I'm gonna speak for Dan the whole episode and just point to him. He's gonna just do the words. What'd you think?
I thought it was great. We finally got one. We finally got a good, actually not, it's kind of good, a good video game adaptation. And it wasn't a movie, it was a show. Thank you, HBO, for hiring the guy that did the game to do the show. He did it justice. He did it the way he wanted to do it. There were nods to the game, literally, like almost frame for frame, shot for shot, parts from the game. And as a fan, a huge fan of the game, that, in my opinion, set a new standard for video games, I was thoroughly entertained and glad they.
Yeah. So. I'm gonna go out of order a little,
because they know that wouldn't order.
I'm telling you guys so you can prepare, but I already forgot what I was gonna do, so we're just gonna keep going like it's nothing.
I will say it's just in general, it's just a good show. Whether it's a adaptation of a book, movie, or video game or whatever, in general, it's just a good show. So that's what I will say.
I think should be our next segue, is that George, as someone who didn't play the game, what did you think about it?
I think it's just a good show. Yeah. Having never played the game, I could just say it's a good show.
What did you like about it?
Well, I will say that it there are a few you know, like this genre, like you said, is oversaturated. So like whether and maybe in not just zombies, but maybe in the broader sense of this kind of like post-apocalyptic genre is very saturated as well. If you didn't know, Fallout is also being made, and Fallout takes place in Boston, from what it looks like.
Ooh, fascinating.
So it's like, and a lot of movies have done post-apocalyptic stuff, not just zombies. If you take away zombies and you broaden that view to the larger genre, post-apocalyptic is a huge genre, not just in television, but in books and comics and video games and all that. So in order for you to like even have a decent impact and do well, you need to bring something different to the stage. And I would say that it has brought enough different things, enough good things to the genre, that it like makes up for any of the small shortcomings or pitfalls it might have kind of, I would say I would equate more to growing pains and just problems with the genre in general that even no matter how good of a show you are, you can't quite avoid, because that's just the cliche of the genre that plays out. I'll give you a good example. What is one of the biggest cliches they tell you in the zombie apocalypse that no one ever fucking listens to? Please remain in your home where it's safe. Literally, the minute that his daughter saw that message, she walked outside.
That's true.
Why does that happen in every single freaking zombie apocalypse or post-apocalypse
needs to happen?
It always happens.
It's true.
Without fail.
Something that is important to recognize, though, with these kinds of things is that are we viewing, I think more often than not, we're watching a show where the concept of zombies hasn't really existed yet. So easy for us to say if something like that hit the airwaves with us seeing many shows like this. Well, if it hadn't happened in this world, like the instinct for me to be like, what's going on? Like, does anyone know what's going on? I personally think I would be one of those people to die in a zombie apocalypse movie, because I would be like, "What's going? Like, no one's telling me anything. Like, what's going on?" Like, so I think that's a fair.
So, like, if the news said like, "Stay in your home where it's safe," like, you wouldn't. With no, even if you didn't know it was the zombie, but like, let's say it's a disaster,
most likely,
or there's like a lot of questions.
Would I go to the grocery store? No. Would I go to somewhere else? No. Would I peek my head out and go to my neighbor and say, "Are you okay? Like, what's going on?" Yeah, I think I would.
Because you're so close to the house that you don't feel like you're outside.
You look outside.
You're like, oh, I'm right here. I can just run back.
I see what you mean. Especially because she knows the neighbor, and there was a dog also. That's the neighbor's.
You got to save the dog. If we've learned anything,
well, I don't know if the dog.
If we've learned anything, the dog's not gonna make it.
Oh yeah. No, I mean from like movies. If there's anything you do, you save the animal. So
I understand.
Hawkeye talks that. Come on.
I understand, like, so that's what I'm saying is there's genre cliche pitfalls, or like things that have to happen in the genre in order to progress the stories, and there's no avoiding that no matter what you do, no matter how good of a show you kind of do. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's no avoiding
there's
that.
Tropes.
I think
you gotta play the tropes.
I think there's a way around that, in that has there been. The thing is, with all of these, you will never hear the word zombie because they never have had a zombie movie or zombie show.
Well, they don't
ever.
need to say.
But I mean, you don't know that there could be a zombie movie.
That's not my problem with it. Is that like Tim's right? It's the tropes that happen, like situations. Okay, how can I put this? No matter how you slice it or dice it in a post-apocalyptic genre, it's very difficult for you to not to come up kind of with new situations, kind of.
Yeah, sure.
The situations at this point in the genre, with how much oversaturated it is, you've pretty much seen all post-apocalyptic situations, kind of. Like, it's very rare for you to see something completely out of left field.
I mean, shit, we got Waterworld.
Yeah.
So they've literally got everything.
I would argue that moment was important for us to see as an audience, to see how things are going to be, and her first experience through her eyes and how it's going. Because without it, it would have been a much more slow.
It makes sense. They obviously have to do that just because of pure the experience of it and the storytelling and all of that. All the reasons for doing it far outweigh the reasons for avoiding it, because it's cliche or because it's a trope or because this has been done before.
We see a very elderly woman who was wheelchair
bound,
all of a
which
sudden
I'm sorry to say, I've also seen that in previous zombie apocalypses.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That's fine. But the thing is, the reason they did it, the good reasons of why they did it and used it in their story, far outweigh the problems of seeing that before, or the trope, or all that. So it's totally fine. And the fact that they do their own small little twist to it really helps outweigh like the problems of the genre that they're trying to avoid.
Yeah, the beauty of it is they brought good writing, good, amazing characters to the show, which will it'll allow you to suspend disbelief. You'll be able to just be like, oh, whatever, like, I don't care. Yes, maybe in the moment you'd be like, why'd you go outside, bitch? Like, what are you doing? Like, what the fuck? But it's no big deal, because you'll be like, oh, the next scene is just so intense that you don't care.
Yeah.
And then as you go, you learn more about these other characters around her, that it's just like, yeah, fine. She dies.
I would really think it would be great if we did it'd be interesting if we did a follow-up episode of like things that are like post-apocalyptic episode about like whether it's zombies, whether it's Terminator, whether it's fucking
forgot about Terminator.
Aliens, whatever it is, like Fallout, nuclear war. Well, like not Aliens the series, but like Aliens, like Independence Day.
Okay, sure.
Independence Day, but I think it's very interesting to see how like the typical storylines and the things that happen, and now you put that aside, right? And you just put the genre of a storyline where there's a protector and a younger character that they have to protect. Now that is a storyline that is played out in a lot of different ways as well, and they of course hit a few of those. They ran into a few of those pitfalls purely because that's just the way the story always seems to develop for some reason. But once again, maybe a few twists in there that make it a little bit better, right? Yeah. Like I just off the top of my head, I can think of like 5 different situations that are almost very similar, if not identical. Well, yeah, to this, right?
They all come from that old.
He played as exactly in another series where he kind of has to do the same thing in The Mandalorian. So like. That's already like saying that's already very.
We will be talking about the Mandalorian.
He gets to act in this one.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of nice.
That's great.
So
that's great. But my point is like two very overplayed, oversaturated genres. The protector and the younger war genre, and then the post-apocalyptic genre.
Yeah.
And the series ran into pretty much all the pitfalls that they're supposed to run into, but once again, enough to balance it out where it made it a good show still.
Damn good
and that's difficult to do. So, I will give you that. It is very difficult to do.
It's interesting that those are the things that you pick up on, because I'm sure for me and Dan watching this show, I was more focused on the game, like, okay, how did this play out? What's going to happen next? What scenes are they not going to have? Like, where's it going to go? Like, I wasn't hung up on it because in the game, yes, it's the same concept of the story, but like, they fill in all these moments with you taking control of the character and going through a battle and doing all that stuff.
It's important to recognize that playing the game, with the exception of the beginning scene playing as Sarah and maybe somewhere in the 3 to 4 hours playing as Ellie, your perspective is from Joel, and you get nothing else. It is purely from that perspective, and Joel isn't exactly the most talkative type, and so we really don't get anything else outside of what is happening from his point of view. So, as a huge fan of the game, personally, it was great. The opening scene just setting the stage for everything and seeing what is happening and how it's slightly different from the game, only albeit a minute detail. It was so great to see things from other perspectives. And if there was a change, it on an initial viewing, I kind of was sad to not see it played out in real in the show's point of view, but ultimately any change was well appreciated and really enjoyable to watch, considering this is maybe what the creator wanted to do originally, or was given a second chance to do something in anything he wanted to do differently, which he did, and we'll get to that.
Yeah, and a lot of I know characters or creators and writers and stuff like that. Even when you're making like a movie or a show, shows maybe you get a little bit more room to play with, but in like a movie, they'll have lot of like background and motivation and like all of this going into a character that we don't get to see because it's written for the actor to get into the mindset so that they can understand the character.
They call it a Bible.
Yeah, and with this, with like the source material being such an in-depth game and then being able to expand on it in here, like we're able to see basically what the writers didn't get to put in, like you were saying, which I think is just pretty awesome to be able to do. And you know, in the beginning I was like, oh, here comes this, you know, this crazy intense fight, or you know, you got to struggle. And after the second or third episode, I stopped waiting for those moments because they weren't what I cared about. And even in the end of the game, like it's an emotional story, so like, you know, yes, those moments in the game add to it because it adds to the struggle that the character goes through because you're going through it, because you're having a hard time beating this boss. You're having a hard time fighting through this horde of zombies. So you're getting frustrated, you're getting emotional about the game you're playing, and that emotion transcends into what the character is going through as well. So you get a little bit more of a deeper emotional tie, but here you got more of the inner monologue, not the inner monologue, but you got more character development in this, which, you know, for Ellie and for like stuff like that, because the early Ellie missions are pretty much fit through that hole, get me that ladder. Like that's, for the most part, that's kind of it until they kind of start to get, till she gets a gun, and then you can start to play with her and do a few more things. So seeing more from like Ellie's perspective, or even from like, you know, the in like episode 4 when they're in Kansas City or whatever, it's 4 or 5, whatever it is, you get to see everything from the perspective of the people in that town, as opposed to Joel spending an hour fighting his way through it. You know, so
as playing the game, I was never under the impression that this was any sort of strong organization. From our perspective, we killed a few guys that a few more guys knew, and that were trying to avenge their death. Or, you know, it was maybe slightly bigger. I had no idea they had overthrown Fedra in occupying Kansas City, and they were the people. We the people on the side of the truck pulling out. Wow. And the fact that the leader was after the 2 people that we allied ourselves with was an extra bit. That was it part of the original? Maybe in his head, maybe not. It was great to see the alternative perspectives and just a treat for someone the game. Great.
I want to tie this into one of the most talked about episodes. Was episode 3. I don't remember what exactly it was called, but it was Bill and Frank. It may have just been called Bill and Frank. I could be wrong, but it was the episode with Bill and Frank, starring the amazing Nick Offerman. I don't know the other actor's name off the top of my head, but he was phenomenal. So in the game, when we meet Bill, you meet just Bill. There's no Frank.
If I may, the Bill is in his town, and in the game, maybe this was by design, maybe not. It is clear he had been on his own for a length of time. We're not sure how. Maybe 1 year, maybe 2, maybe less, maybe more. The town is heavily fortified, maybe 3 times as much as we saw on the show.
Easily.
And Bill is a dick from start to finish. He is clear, and we don't really know why he's this way. We don't know if it was a situational thing or a temporary. We just know he was a dick front to back, and he fought us the whole way, and he reticently helps us at the end.
Bill die? No, he doesn't.
Bill does not die. He does tell us where we can go to get a car and a car battery,
and that's like a whole,
and that we have to do that by ourselves.
Yeah.
And upon arriving at said car and car battery, we find a gentleman who has hung himself, and it turns out to be Frank. Frank had written a letter to Bill saying, "I'm tired of your shit. I'm out of here." And we are not really even. I didn't deduce that they may have been together. Maybe they were. Maybe they weren't in the game. We're not really sure. All that we know is that they were partners, however you want to interpret that. And that we find the gay porn magazine away, and something really sad is that in the game, Frank had written this letter and killed himself because he got bit, saying "fuck you." I'm, like the word. I wish I could tell you to fuck off one last time. I don't know. That's not exactly it, but
word for word.
It was more or less
more
or less fuck you, and what a turnaround on this episode. I initially was a little sad. I didn't get to see Bill interact with Joel, and I wondered what that interaction was going to be like, but we didn't get to.
We did see some of that.
We saw them interacting
yeah.
before it happened, and I liked that, and it was interesting.
They did have a good dynamic. It was a very no bullshit dynamic.
Right.
It was, I don't like you, get
people.
out of my house.
They're very similar people.
Which is funny because I never would have said they were similar at all upon playing the game.
Well, because when we're playing, we're automatically Joel, which in our mind, he's the protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
He's the hero. He's the good guy. So, when Bill comes around, we're like, Joel's great. He's a little rough around the edges, but he's a great guy. He's out to do the things.
Joel.
Yeah. Your team Joel.
So the episode plays out, and Frank is sick and on his last legs, and Bill decides to go with him. It is a beautiful moment in cinematic TV history. I bawled like a baby. I thought it was, and the creators themselves were quoted as saying, there is a lot of sad stuff that happens in this story. I'm glad that they decided to do it. Though initially a little sad, didn't get to see the interaction. Ultimately, a good choice. I don't know how they chose their moments to change very carefully, and I am grateful for that. Would I have liked to see more or less changes? I don't know, but I liked how it played out regardless.
I like my favorite line between. I told this to Dan already. My favorite line of interaction between the two of them was when Frank was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I live in the real world, and you live in the world where 9/11 was an inside job, and the government are Nazis." And he's like, "The government are Nazis," and he's like, "They are now, but they weren't before."
That was.
I was like, I laughed out loud.
It was a great. It learned all you needed to know
it was hilarious.
Bill and Frank.
Right, because it's it's their love is very beautiful because in many ways, one is, could be written off as kind of like a country bumpkin, and not sophisticated, but even in their first meeting and every interaction, he knew the right wine to pair with Rabbit.
Yeah. And
and he was like, you wouldn't think that looking at me. And then I think maybe Frank was like, I misjudged him kind of, but then he's like, now that I look at him better, I can see that there's more to it than this rough outside, gruff guy. That there's someone deep down inside who's sophisticated and who's smart and who's incredibly intelligent, who has been alone even before this.
Mm-hmm.
What
a treat! What a treat for me we never met Frank. All we see is a man who was himself.
Yeah.
And now we get to see this play out. I loved it.
And there was a moment where I thought when they got raided, I thought that was over. That they were going to die and Joel was going to find them dead after the raid. And then suddenly the scene cuts to 10 years later. And you're like, whoa!
I thought
so
Frank
they survived
was gonna
it.
Die.
Yeah, I thought they were both either one of them die or both of them die. I thought they were going to die before they got a chance to grow old together. And I think it's beautiful that they actually did get to grow old together in this. And from what it sounds like, they continue to help Joel and Tess through the years.
I have to. All I'm thinking about right now is I can't help but think about Nick Offerman, Bill walking around that Home Depot. And the last time I saw him walk around Home Depot was Parks and Rec, and the employee asked him "Hi, can I help?" He's like, "I know more than you."
I know more than you.
Like,
that meme is still going around.
He's back at Home Depot, and he is getting everything. I love what a scene to him.
Yeah,
dude. Because I as a fan of just. A fan of me, George, Tim, and I always talk about what we would do, how we would handle a zombie apocalypse. And this man, the second he realized what was happening, he got to work, and I was like, yes, this is what I would want to do. Like section off what he had, and he did it. Oh, that was a real.
That's what I'd want to do.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be able to do it. I want to do it.
Well, I don't live in a place that can do that easily.
No. I want to talk about this show's depiction of two gay men, because a lot of traditional media, if you have a gay character, they're obviously gay. They're flamboyantly gay. They're caricatures of gay characters. And in this one, they really broke that down, because if you walk around in the world today and you've met anybody who is gay, they are not all just openly flamboyant with feathers and all this shit everywhere. They're in every walk of life, and for me, seeing someone who is basically a Republican, let's just throw that out there, who is like, he's not even not a Republican, but he's a, what do they call him, a prepper, a doom prepper.
Yeah.
Like, those type of people are not stereotypically drawn as a gay character, and I think that this was monumental to show that everybody can be anything, and to not judge a book by its cover, not assume people's identities, not take anybody for granted, because you could be talking to someone who's way more sophisticated, but they've been so ashamed and had to hide it their whole life. And now they finally, in the apocalypse, get to be who they were always meant to be. Like, that's a beautiful thing, because when he's first with Frank, Frank is like, have you done this before? And he's like, once, with a woman a long time ago. Like, so he's been cordoned off. He put up his own walls before he built those walls for protection. He's been protecting himself and who he was because of where he lived.
Where do they live?
Side of.
Yeah, which
it's on the way from Boston to Wyoming,
Virginia. Which that's not the greatest of states. I'm sorry if I'm judging
I'm trying
the
to
whole
think
state.
of the route that they took.
They said 2 or 3 hours outside.
Yeah, so I mean, it's I don't know the social demographic in Massachusetts or Boston or anything, but I mean, I think that was a major step for Hollywood, for cinema, for television, to really show this progression of this person, this human being. It was beautiful. It was amazing.
I would go as far to say that not in such a short amount of time a greater love story hasn't been since the first 10 minutes of Up.
Still better than Twilight.
Everything. It was a really, really well told, and in such a short amount of time, it almost makes me wish that there was a little more of them somehow. But they did all they needed to do. We learned everything. We understood them quickly, and they moved through. It was it's hard for me to not say that it was my favorite episode, because and it's because it was different from the game, and I don't know if that it's because of that, but I can't tell. There was the biggest emotional impact, most unexpected, certainly. It was a real treat.
It was an excellent one. I don't know what my favorite episode would
maybe
be.
it doesn't have to be episode.
I mean, they all blend together.
Yeah,
I literally binge watched.
Yeah, I binged them too.
Maybe not episode as much. Maybe favorite moment.
I was waiting for that giraffe moment. I know we kind of spoiled it for you 20 minutes ago or an hour ago, but okay. I was waiting for it, and it didn't quite impact as much as it did in the game.
There were a few moments where when you're going to create something shot for shot, it's a huge risk, and especially since we spend so much more time with these characters in games, things, just because of and I haven't talked about it yet, the amazing voice acting performances of Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson. It's hard to. I mean, it's a short amount of time.
Troy Baker.
Troy Baker. Oh my God! And Ashley Johnson, to me, to this day, best performance in a video game in my. He just breathed such a huge amount of life to the point where socially, emotionally attached. It was incredible, and so to follow that up is a challenging thing, especially when you're creating something shot. There are more than one moment like that, personally. And that's not to say they were done badly. It's just it's hard to do. Yeah, I agree. It didn't land quite the same. It's still really nice, though.
While I think about, and do you have a favorite moment, or do you want to think about it for a second? Because I have something we haven't talked about, and I didn't actually put on my list. Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey, like, these two embodied these characters. Pedro Pascal got the looks. He looks just like Joel. and I was like, okay, let's see what he can do. I know he's a powerhouse. I know he's a great actor and has a insane range, and nailed it. Like start to finish, to me, that's Joel. Like I mean, yes, he's gonna sound different. He's gonna look a little different, but he might as well be the same character. They gave him a little bit more to work with. You get a little bit more character, and he becomes a little more talkative, I think, at the end of this than maybe in the game. But whatever, you can't have a whole show with a guy grunting unless it's apparently The Witcher. But Bella Ramsey was, if you played the game or you saw the box, it looked like, I don't know if anyone's Elliot Page or Ellen Page when this game was made. It looked dead on like her. It sounded dead on like them. And, so everyone blew up her Twitter and all this and was like, are you in this game? Is this you? Is this you? Is this? And she's like, no. I have to say he because past tense. We're going.
He sued them for it.
Did he?
For likeness appropriation.
Because it really did look like.
I forgot how it played out, but I'm pretty sure they might have. I think they settled.
Yeah,
I would assume they must have settled.
Bella Ramsey though nailed it. We only know her from. I only know her from Game of Thrones. She was in another period piece that came out not too long ago. I don't know if it's aired here. When I was in England, it was playing, and I didn't watch it. I should have, just so I could have more comparison for her, but she was phenomenal.
She's incredible. What a great American accent.
Would
never have guessed.
Right? If we hadn't seen her and seen interviews and all this shit, that's freaked me out. I thought that was George, but it was outside. Phenomenal. I couldn't have cast it better myself. If we were going for looks, she doesn't look like Ellie, but nailed it. I think she'll play well to the second season as well. Because how old is she?
Well, the thing is, in the second game, so she's she's roughly 12-ish or 13, and in the second game, she's aged about 5 or 6 years. And that's when a lot of people do a lot of growth. So I'm guessing if they were to do this, we won't see recasting. So I think they're just going to skirt around that, and it's going to be however long it's been in real life.
And you can, honestly, they did a decent job. From first of all, in that first episode when Joel was like, "I'm 36," oh, the fuck you are.
Fun fact, I don't know if anyone has noticed this, for people who have played The Last of Us Part 2, this doesn't give anything away, but there is a character in Last of Us Part 2 named Dina, who we briefly saw for a second in this show, which they did not do, obviously, in the original game, where it was someone who was curious and walking up and trying to talk to Ellie, she didn't have any speaking roles.
Interesting.
But there's a part where they're in, it was when they found Tommy and they were in somewhere. Sitting down to eat.
Oh, the one that was poking. She's like, "What the hell are you looking at?"
She was like, it's like, don't stop being so curious. Get out of here. That's Dina.
Oh, that's cool.
In the second.
I didn't realize that would be her.
So yeah. I think my favorite moment from the game that also didn't feel quite the same.
From the show. We're talking about the show. You can't talk about the game because we're talking about the show.
Well, I just want to say from the game. The part where it's summing up the overall arcing theme of the whole story was that when Ellie says everyone's left me except for you, Joel, and there's the shove. That was my favorite moment. It didn't quite land the same again in the show because when you create something, you lose some of it. In the show, though, I can't help but feel that. My favorite thing was episode 3 with Bill and Frank. It's hard to skirt around that. It was so powerful.
I don't really know. It all kind of blends together. Right. It's hard to say
which is a sign of a good show.
Yeah, I don't really can't say. I mean, my favorite part is the part where he goes, "The government are Nazis."
That was good. No, that was good.
Because I laughed.
don't know.
9/11 was an inside job, and the government are a bunch of Nazis.
How about this? It was great, even though there was only one showing of it. I was a little sad about that. The debut of the bloater, the super huge overgrown zombie,
that was cool.
Crawling out of the hole.
Man,
that was not how it played out in the game.
Kansas City was kind of interesting in the many ways because and Kansas City fell into some of the problems of the genre, into the tropes of the genre.
It was great how they got to tease it, where they're wondering,
yeah,
what is this thing?
Okay, but I mean, like, I mean, I understand shit's hitting the fan everywhere, and when you're a leader in a post-apocalyptic, town. But like, really, that's not the top of your fucking list when the ground starts to.
Yeah, but I mean,
emotionally compromised.
Yeah. So I mean, I get it. I know what the character.
Like that's very, what I'm saying. That's one of those one of those pitfalls where like you're why is it that your list of priorities is completely off when like survival is number one, and this is like clearly something that is like gonna be in the way of survival.
Emotionally compromised, and they had stressed how well liked this person was that was killed.
Mm-hmm.
And if she had basically taken a full on heel turn, the fact that everyone liked her, including the man who killed him, said how good of a person he was. It's clear that this person had a presence that we don't fully understand, and enough of one to make her say screw everything else. The death of these fuckers matters more than the well-being of.
I mean, I can understand wanting to get to them in a timely manner, because in this type of situation, you're going to if you wait 2 days, they're gone. They're gone. They've left the city, and you will never see them again. So I get it, but. All your resources, that's just irresponsible.
Yeah.
So
the fucking ground literally is moving.
Yeah, that was terrible. That was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
So
I don't understand how that's not your number one priority, and you don't think the ground is like gonna break eventually. You think this is the only. If it's happening here, you don't think it's happening in another part of the building and somewhere like another building anywhere like in the neighborhood. Like what? You really think this is the only place that's like? I don't. Like, you know what I'm saying? I get it, emotionally compromised, but like those are like the little little tropes that like post-apocalyptic like genre falls into, and that might have been. If you ask me what's my high and lows, that is one of the lower ones where I was like,
I think people had a problem with that character online as well. Like there was a big Twitter uproar about her and something about.
I don't care about the character,
but the portrayal of the character.
Oh, I don't know
about. I don't remember it, but I will say that episode got me real excited for zombies and or fungus people. And we didn't. The one thing I will say, I wanted more. That was the only thing that I wanted more. But again, by the end of the show, I was like, oh, right, there was supposed to be zombies. I forgot about them because everything else was such great writing, such great story and character development and like progression. I was like, all right, this is a drama. Like, tell me it's a drama and I'm there,
When you really break it down, the game really was like always stressing that the biggest danger is people, and not necessarily, and like because zombies were predictable and you could find it, people weren't, and so I think this show just kind of doubled on that and focused on which is true,
which is almost true in every single zombie apocalypse or any apocalypse.
Well, they focused on what was important and the quality of the characters and the interactions, because I hate to say it, a lot of zombie apocalypse shows don't always have such great strong performances or writing, so they have to lean on the zombies a little harder, and this show did not have to do
and
that.
That's what's interesting is like that's also like
though.
That is the theme almost like in every single post-apocalyptic like situation. Like it's not the zombies or it's not the aliens. It's not it's when civilization breaks down and it's other people. Those are the most dangerous. That's the reason why the Walking Dead is called The Walking Dead. It's not The Walking Dead. When they talk about Walking Dead, it doesn't refer to the zombies. It refers to other people because every single human is. Well, spoiler if you didn't know, everyone's fucking infected already in Walking Dead. So those people are literally, the humans are literally the Walking Dead, actually. So, that's what's dangerous, not the zombies. So, it's like that in every single...
No, but that wasn't my point. My point was that, the actors and performances and writing was so strong, we didn't need to lean on any of the other...
That's,
good.
So, right. So, they don't lean on it at all.
At all.
At all.
There were maybe
we agree.
Scenes,
and we agree.
Especially in Kansas City, when they get Sam and Henry, and they go into the underground tunnel. I remember that, and you go down there, and you have these big doors, and you go behind them, and then there's like 3-4 clickers that you have to sneak around, and a couple other ones. So I'm like, ooh, this is about to get real scary and intense. And they go play in a daycare. I was like, I wanted the build a little bit more, but other than that,
I was very fascinated. I respected the choice to make Henry deaf.
Was he not deaf in the show?
He was not. He was much older, and he was not deaf in the.
Not Henry. Sam.
Sorry, Sam. Sam was older and not deaf, and I really thought that they were going to use that as some part of the plot, and they really didn't, which is fine, I guess. But I was intrigued as to thought that I was going to get into it more. He wasn't going to hear something, or he wasn't going to hear one of them, or something.
Yeah,
but there still wasn't, which whatever. But an interesting little tidbit, slight little difference from the game.
So a lot of these people factions, the mini micro governments, the communities that they run into, don't end so well for Ellie and Joel. They're always going through very hostile environments. Kansas City. So you've got Fedra in the beginning, obviously in Boston. Is Kansas City the second one? And then you run into another group, run into like the people towards the end in Wyoming. But you also have where Tommy is in Wyoming as well. I guess the other one's Salt Lake City, that one's closer to Salt Lake City, Utah, rather than Wyoming. So the one with the preachers is closer to Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
Tommy's in Wyoming. But like other than the preacher, every group that they run into is led by women. Like strong characters, whether they're in the right or they're in the wrong, it doesn't matter. They are, the ones in charge. I like that they made that the norm, and that like the real heinous person was a man. In that final place with the preacher in episode 8, 9, second to last one, I believe. Is that correct? 8. Yeah. So I like that they're putting powerful women in these places of power, which is, he said, power too much. Because especially when it's Tara from True Blood, and I was like, oh, she's got a bit of a redemption from True Blood, because she was the most annoying character in True Blood in Wyoming.
I'm gonna lose it over.
That's Tara from True Blood. And it was Nadia who said that. It wasn't even me. I was like, I recognized her. She remembered the name. I didn't remember.
She slept in True Blood.
Yeah, but she sucked. But in this, it was
when
really
I stopped
good.
Watching True Blood was when I learned she was coming back to life.
That whole show. We could do a whole episode about how the downfall of a lot of shows.
We might do that. This show's a strong first season.
Most of them are on HBO. So sorry. But I mean, what was her name in this? I'm just gonna keep calling her Tara. Marlene is the head of all of the.
It was it's on another name that's like.
But like every faction, good or bad. So it's Tara's character. Marlene's the head of the Fireflies. Whatever her name is in Kansas City, like they're all the ones that have been chosen to be put into power, which I really liked seeing, because it again, just like episode 3, it shows that like
Maria,
it shows that like it's not. Well, it kind of shows that we're living in a fucking patriarchy, and it'll take the fall of like literally humankind for women to rise up, which is depressing because it should not be that way. Most other countries have had female leadership, and we're one of the last ones that's never had a female leader, which is really fucking annoying. So to see this portrayed, yes, it's not the best of light for all of them, but I think it's good. It's a good, strong showing, and it is important for people to be able to relate to that. Again, 3 dudes.
I'll be honest, I didn't even really think about.
That's what I'm saying, but I thought it was kind of cool to see that.
I didn't really think they. I don't think they did it to make up. Well, maybe weren't the characters always women though in the game?
Yeah, but
so it's not a choice necessarily made by.
This is just a broader audience.
Well, the Kansas City
We don't know.
Was not in the game.
You may have seen her. I mean,
like
passing,
I didn't think too much about like choices in casting as far as that kind of thing, because like I just figured those were just characters.
They all were, with the exception of the Kansas City.
I don't think they changed too much about any of the characters we met.
No.
That guy who played the preacher in episode 8, I mean, he did a great job.
So that's like more of a...
That's disturbing.
Okay, so it's more on like when the game was previously made more than the show.
You notice his right-hand man was Troy Baker?
That? Yeah. I didn't. I don't...
Yeah,
man, he got a beard. Like, he looked very different.
We never see Troy Baker, so it's hard to know. But
I've seen him a bunch.
I watched a lot of behind the scenes of Last of Us making the game.
Huh.
That was his right hand man. Was Troy Baker, the original voice actor for Joel,
and the mother of the mother of Ellie, who dies also in, I think, in episode 9. I don't know.
Something else we never see in the game
is the actress who plays her
Ashley
Johnson, who is the voice of Ellie originally. Which I thought, again, these are just fun little nods.
The part about Marlene, like, does she reveal that she knew Ellie before? Was friends with Ellie's mom in the game?
You know, I something my spider sense would say. I feel like there was something, but I don't think so.
Because like
maybe not as in depth.
I think if it was revealed to us, I think it was revealed to us, the audience, and not Ellie the character.
Well, no, but she did in the game, if I recall. My memory is not the best.
Oh,
she did reveal in the beginning. She called Ellie by her real name.
Right.
So probably she knew her or knew of her because she's the reason that Marlene's the reason that she was put into Fedra and the reason that she was. I think that's in the game.
Alluded to.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe not as in depth.
I cannot confirm.
So
look for the comments.
So last point I want to talk about to a hard pivot kind of is we talked about it early on, is that we finally got a win for adaptations. Now again, this is just a good show and it doesn't have to be judged based on an adaptation, but we got to win as gamers that this is a great adaptation. Now, the biggest win we had before this, arguably, was
Street Fighter.
Was it was great.
For me, it was Tuesday. For me, it was Tuesday.
Was hard to argue, but kind of can argue was The Witcher. But The Witcher's more based off of the books than the games.
It is based off the books.
So you can kind of do that, but I don't think there's really a W anywhere, because I watched Uncharted and it was terrible. And a lot of these games are made.
The closest
I love
you could
Sonic.
Say is
Sonic is your biggest win.
Sonic was probably the closest thing to a W we had coming into the Witcher.
I'd give it a W.
You don't like
Sonic.
What's your first name? Mario. What's your second name?
Mario.
What's your first name? Luigi. What's your last name?
So for me, which is hilarious that I'm about to say this, the biggest W for me, arguably, if I had to pick one before all this, was Rampage starring The Rock.
Yeah.
Like that was probably the closest thing we had to a W as gaming fans of game adaptations.
The point taking away from this is video game adaptations shouldn't be movies, because most modern video games are like 70 hours, 50 hours, 30 hours, and you try and whittle all of that down to an hour and a half to 2.5 hours. Like you can't do it. You're gonna get Uncharted, you're gonna get Mario, you're gonna get they made a Blood Rain movie.
Mortal Kombat!
You're gonna get Mortal Kombat. Like, these should either be like a trilogy that has parts of it and not the whole story, or a fucking TV show, because you're able to take these beats that are in the games and make them more emotional. So HBO, Amazon, Netflix, Hulu, Disney, make TV shows out of video games. Stop putting shit. I don't want to see fucking Universal. Stay away. You get no games. Fuck off. Just make them into TV shows. Unless you're gonna put it on Paramount. Is that even the same thing? You know what I mean? Halo, that was terrible. You know what I mean? Like, there's all these adaptations. So this, if any of these people are taking notes, which I guarantee you everybody in the industry was taking notes on this shit, because this was a huge release for HBO and for gamers.
I thought you were going to say they're all watching this, is what I thought.
No, for the show, for Last of Us.
For sure they're all watching this and taking notes.
So Bob Iger, listen to me here. Here's what you got to do. I think he's coming back, which I thought. Anyway, so in wraps, like I'm hoping that everybody learns from this in the industry, because I know they're doing a God of War, which is again one of these cinematic games.
If the director of the game wants to do the show,
I mean, it's
please let him.
It's like the Netflix and Nickelodeon thing with Avatar. How originally the live action adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender had Michael DiMartino and Bryan Konietzko as lead writers, not just writers, lead writers on the show, and then heads at Netflix were like, no, let's hey, what are you doing? Let's do this, let's do that, let's do this.
Yet. We haven't seen it.
Right, but they left and they're doing their own thing. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that section of Nickelodeon is gonna be better than the thing we're gonna get from Netflix. I could be wrong. Maybe somebody learned. I doubt it, because people just like to do whatever the fuck they want. So if you haven't seen this, I don't know why you'd still be listening here at this point in the episode, but this was a wonderful show. This was a win for gamers. This was a win for people who like drama and character and a semi-fresh take on the zombie / post-apocalyptic world, because again, it's a fungus and it changes, and the fact that they're able to kind of take this zombie thing that's been going since the 60s in Romero's old zombie movies and still kind of have it be relevant and entertaining, that's a win, man. Because Walking Dead was boring and weird, and the comics were great, but it just became this whole thing. And there's zombie movies, unless it's like Zombieland, where something unique take on it, then
I tend to like. I honestly like. I know I was very reluctant to watch this because, like I said, it's very
zombie.
Yeah, but I love zombies. I do.
It was not
Shaun of the Dead,
this one.
Okay.
Zombieland, all those I love, because there's a twist to it, and there's a bit of humor to it, and that's what I enjoy.
Right.
And this, even though it did have its funny parts, don't get me wrong, it actually had its funny parts, but it was enough of a twist as a drama that I could enjoy it.
I wouldn't even
really
call
liked
this a
it.
zombie show. First and foremost,
It's a post-apocalyptic.
It is
show.
post-apocalyptic.
That's
but it's
more where it falls.
But it's barely even that, in my eyes.
It's definitely
it's part of we didn't get a chance to talk about the sets of the show. My God, top tier, amazing job everywhere.
2 seconds. My favorite part is not so much the scene, but the recreation of that lodge in episode 8. That scene, I can't say it was a great scene. I mean, it's a horrifying, traumatic fucking scene, don't get me wrong, and I'm not glorifying it in any way, but I had so many problems with that fucking scene in the game. So that I memorized that lodge, and then when they cut to this, I'm like, "That's literally they built it.
Oh my God, they built
brick
it
for brick,
yeah.
stitch for stitch in the seating," and that was for me. It was really cool to see.
So impressive, but most importantly, this was a win for gamers, man. We finally got one.
Yeah.
We got a good adaptation, and not one where we go, okay.
Hey, Detective Pikachu was solid.
Like I was saying, we finally got one.
I actually don't even count Detective Pikachu.
It is based off of a video game. There is a Detective Pikachu video game released in Japan, so it is a real game. We have
now reached our limit of talking about Detective Pikachu in this episode. Anyways, this was great, and I was so glad to see a good adaptation. Yeah. Finally. I'm really happy. Win for gamers, man.
Yeah, so good times. That's it for today. Make sure to like and follow everything. All of our fancy things are all up here at the top. Go ahead and subscribe to that so you can see more news. I'm back in the United States, so I will be able to do these more often, and we'll be able to do them at a more reasonable time, although this is like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So, had a good time. Ben the Modern Nerd, and thank you for watching.